it's Kirk Walper. I'm a realtor with LePage, Parksville-Qualicum Beach, and I'm here today with my sister.
Yeah, I'm Melanie Peake, also with the same brokerage, LePage, Parksville-Qualicum Beach Realty. We're independent realtor agents in our community, and we just thought we'd start a podcast. So exciting!
Yay.
This is our first one.
All right, so we're going to go through a few questions, and I think what people are most interested in is what's happening today in the market. So I have some questions for you, Melanie, and then you can direct back to me as well. But
Yes.
So the first thing right now I thought, which will address a few things, is what challenges do you see buyers facing today in this market?
Yeah, so as we know, the market was quite bananas in 2020, 2021. In March of 2022, things kind of came to a halt once the interest rate announcements took place. So the buyers since then they've been wanting to take a little bit of a pause, a break, would you say?
Yes.
Wanting to get to know what exactly is happening in the market. So
well, I think the buyers were excited when they heard that interest rates were going up because that meant they thought that prices would come down.
Yeah, right. That has been, I feel like that's been a bit of an issue for buyer clients in general because they feel like prices may still be coming down. Should we wait? And for the most part, buyers, the most common thing I hear is, we're just going to wait and see.
Right. Okay. But now we hear, and at our office meeting this week, talking about multiple offers again. One house sold for $100,000 over ask. Mm-hmm. So now where does that leave buyers today? Are they going to sit and wait?
Yeah, it's tricky for buyers. It's good I think it's really good for buyers to be prepared in the market these days. So connecting with your realtor, your agent, really getting a feel for what is happening out there for prices, get out and see properties, having all your financing in place is really important. Just really like doing your research, getting your facts, being ready, and so that you're on top of what's happening.
Yes. Well, and I've seen also big changes over the years in how buyers are having to act in terms of how they're getting offers accepted, because back in a different market when we had a higher inventory, buyers could take their time, they could write lower offers, they had time to make decisions and make sure it felt right.
Yeah.
Now again, we're in a market where buyers are having to make quick decisions, and if they want their offer to be accepted, then they're not able to take that time. So do you think, what are you advising a buyer client? Are they, if they're hesitant, I guess in terms of them getting the right house versus getting a deal, do people still want to feel like they're getting a bargain, or are they just happy to have an accepted offer and have a home to move into?
Yeah, I think so. January, February, March this year, the market was a little bit slower. So buyers were certainly in the position where offers were being presented, there was negotiating taking place. Now as we're moving into the spring market where there's more listings coming on, but also more buyers are coming out, feeling better about getting out and looking again, there's more competition. So it is important for buyers to get out as quickly as we can to look at homes, and having all of our due diligence sort of in place so that we can write our offers quickly and be ready to act versus waiting a little bit longer.
And having fewer conditions or having a clean offer is definitely important again, right? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But still, it has been really nice for buyer clients that we are still writing offers with subjects, which is great for buyers to be able to do that, feel better, do their due diligence, have the time on their side.
Right. Okay. Well, good. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's switch to sellers now. We've talked about buyers. So what kind of challenges are sellers facing right now?
Yeah, so on the selling side, it's hard for sellers as well because we've come from this insane market where, multiple offers are taking place to now there are listings that are taking longer to sell. They're just generally speaking staying on the market for longer. So again, really important to have everything sort of in place up front. So that's getting your house ready for staging, decluttering, tidy. Tidy's a big one when buyers are coming through.
Well,
How about you?
Yeah, well, I find it's very confusing for sellers right now because they are also hearing about multiple offers
Yeah.
as we are.
Yeah.
And sometimes we list a property and it looks like it's at the right price and it's prepared and it sits there. And so they're frustrated. They're wondering
Yeah.
why theirs isn't selling or why they didn't get multiple offers. So it's kind of, there's two markets happening at the same time, it seems, at sometimes. And you see some properties that come on that almost look like they're underpriced, and some of those get multiple offers, some of those don't. Or I've also noticed that homes that need a bit more work are sitting longer.
Right.
That buyers, the turnkey, neat, clean, tidy, turnkey, ready to go, those homes seem to be attracting the most attention, right?
Yeah, and especially homes that are priced in that nice range of like 500,000 all the way up, even up to $1 million. That's a range where a lot of our buyer clients who are moving here are making some transitions. It's a more popular price range. So that is where we're seeing more multiples, if you will, versus the higher priced over $1 million sellers can be prepared to maybe wait a little longer with higher priced.
So let's talk kind of, practically speaking, scenario where we're working with a client, writing an offer, or even an example of something that you've seen lately where you've had a buyer and maybe they were in multiple offers. What kind of strategies are you seeing work in terms of getting that buyer the house, getting that offer accepted?
Yeah, so I always like to phone the listing agent of the properties, just see what I can learn, see what's really important for the sellers on the other side. Maybe dates are important to them. Maybe it's a quick possession date, or so finding out those sort of details that will help you write your offer in the most positive way possible. And as far as subjects go, just making sure that the buyers are writing offers with the exact subjects that need to get them through their due diligence timing.
Okay.
And just really working with the other side. And
yeah, I think it's important to know who you're presenting to. If you're representing a buyer, to know a little bit about the seller or the seller's agent. I know I actually saw a reel yesterday from Barbara Corcoran of Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And she was saying, she's in the market for a home and she was likely going to be in a competing offer scenario. And her recommendation was to write a letter to the seller. Now, I've seen it go both ways with those letters. What's your experience? Are you advising? Is that something you say is a must, or when does it work? When does it not?
It's definitely something that I discuss with buyer clients, that it's an option to write what we call love letters. It just gives a little bit of background. It doesn't have to be long, a couple of sentences, just a little, this is who we are, this is what we love about your home, this is why we would fit nicely into your property. Yeah. And on the flip side of that, when I'm sitting with sellers, it depends on the personality of the sellers quite often. So if they're really analytical, perhaps their goal of the sale is specifically like its price, and it's what are they netting in the at the end of the day. Whereas other times sellers are like emotional, and so those love letters really they pull at the heartstrings, and they can sometimes be an indicator for...
Yeah, correct. And I've seen too, when two offers are quite similar and one has a letter and more details about the people, then the sellers may be more likely to deal with that. I know I had one recently where I was representing a buyer and we were in multiple offers, and my understanding was the offers were quite close. We knew the seller had a dog and the buyers had a dog as well. And so we just presented that information, and that was one of the reasons why the seller chose to work with our offer. Now the other buyers could have had a dog too, but they didn't say they did. So there's little things that make a difference. But I know sitting on the other side with sellers, the letter doesn't mean anything if the price isn't good.
Yes.
So
very true.
That's interesting. But we are seeing that again. So I thought we would just touch on that as well. So when it comes to the current market, what we're seeing, what we're working with, and I know I had an example recently with sellers because of the seller's expectation of what they're hearing about multiple offers and the market's hot, the inventory is low, and how that relates back. And recently working with some sellers that when offers were coming in, if the offer wasn't full price or close to it, they were just wanting to flat out reject that. And so because they thought that they should be getting that higher offer. Now, my experience has been over the years that sometimes regardless of where that buyer starts with their offer. It's really where they end up.
Yeah.
And everybody's different, but sometimes people have this, it's like it's in their DNA to just start low, no matter what you tell them, right? So, and I've learned that a lot of times the writing of the offer, and especially when it's not competing offers, just to have an offer to work with as a seller, even though that initial offer may not be what you're looking for or may not be even close to the price. Go back with something, right? Put the ball back into the buyer's court. So counter offer, see if you can close that gap. That's always been, it was something that was told to me very early on when I got into real estate, is always go back with something.
Right.
And because if you can keep the ball rolling, then sometimes it comes together.
That's
because even buyers, sometimes they're nervous, right? They're extra cautious. They like the property enough that they want to write an offer, but they're still processing all the information, right?
Yeah.
Have you had similar experience?
Yeah. I try to tell both on the buyer and seller side to like try to take the emotions out of it, because it's a business transaction, and if you can just be calm through the process, and like you say, try not to get offended to one way or the other, and just work with the offer and work with the other agents and counter and see if it lands at a... Yeah.
Do you find this scenario I've had too, where a buyer writes an offer and they just say that's their best and final? The odds of that type of an offer being accepted versus that same buyer writing an offer lower than their best and final and leaving room for two or three negotiations. In your opinion, which the better way to go?
I mean, it depends on the personalities of the buyers quite often, but if you can give yourself a little room for negotiation, especially in this market that we're in now, that sellers know that negotiating is more common, I think that's a good strategy.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that too. It just seems like once either party digs their heels in, then it's harder for the other one to close all of that gap. Sometimes if we're dealing with price, that sometimes it's a big gap to close versus the give and take where I'll come down a little if you come up a little, and then if we do that 2 or 3 times, then it's a much smaller gap to fill, and then it's easier to swallow for them, as well as accepting that, and whether they're taking a little bit less, or the buyers or seller taking less, or a buyer paying a little bit more.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, and I've actually had a couple of, I've been on the buyer's side lately where we've written offers, we've negotiated back and forth maybe 4 or 5 times, and then the deal collapsed. Like it actually didn't come together. And a week later, went back to the table, tried again, and at that time the offer did come together. So really just coaching buyers and sellers through, and things can come around again. You can try again.
Well, for sure. And I think though now, if we're in a competing offer scenario, all of everything that we just talked about doesn't apply. It doesn't necessarily apply, because now when you're writing in competing offers, right, you only get one shot potentially, right? You don't get a chance to get that counter offer. So I've had buyer clients say, well, we'll pay, let's just say, for example, their max they'll pay is $750, but they only want to offer $730.
Right.
And so my experience in just seeing that over the years, when they come in with that low offer, they may not get it, and then they're disappointed, right, that they didn't get it. So if you're prepared to go to a price and you're in a competing offer situation, you need to ask yourself, at what point would you still be okay and happy if that got accepted? And you usually need to go to that number right away, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then in that multiple offer scenario, so if there's 3 offers on the table, I usually try to explain it to the buyers where they have their 3 offers. The sellers can choose any one of the 3 to work with, or they could say, these buyers had a fair chance to write their best, and I'm just going to choose one. And it totally depends on the personality or whatever's happening on the seller side. And
also the experience of that listing agent that's sitting there with the sellers, because if the listing agent on that property isn't as experienced, they're not going to know all of the options that they have available to them. For example, I've seen it where the sellers have a good offer in hand, and they'll go counter offer the second best offer at a way higher price and test the water to see where that goes. So and that's an experience thing. So you don't know who you're dealing with and what you're dealing with. One thing that I also learned is that if you are in a multiple offer scenario, your offer's been presented and you're sitting waiting, and if they're not talking to you, they're talking to somebody else.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
be
true.
proactive, make that phone call and see where things
See
are
where
at,
things are
because
at.
maybe you can get in with another offer,
Right.
increase your price or terms, better your terms, right?
Because any time that there's offers on the table and we're in that sort of waiting process, at any point the buyer can make a call, or the buyer's agent can make a call and say, you know what, we'd like to come in at a higher price. Or
so up and until there's an accepted offer, they can look at new offers, right?
Yes.
So okay.
Yeah.
I think we've gone through that, which is excellent information for people, and I think it's just nice for us to talk things through as well. What do you find in terms of agents, and you've been an agent for a number of years, you've worked with lots of people, you've been very successful yourself. What do you find if someone came up to you and said, Melanie, what makes a great agent? What would be your answer to that?
Well, I know my buyer and seller clients really appreciate quick responses as fast as we humanly possible can. So quick responses, a lot of communication, open communication seems to be a really a point that people appreciate.
Okay.
And just being on top of things. You know, I'm a super multitasker, organized kind of person. So when I have an accepted offer in place, just like having all my dates, like having everything organized, so help your buyers and sellers all the way through the process. And
just going back to communication, what do you find what are you using most when you're dealing with your clients? So are you texting? Are you phoning them? Are you emailing them? What do you I know, because it's changed, right? So what do you what's the best form of communication today that you find?
Right. So email is good. For agents, email is great because it's a way for us to keep track of things, file it, set it in our calendar. So for me, that's an amazing way to communicate with my clients. Quite often I will ask my buyers or sellers, what is the preferred method?
Right.
Perhaps they work during the day and they don't want to be bothered with a phone call, and text messaging is better. So just asking the buyers and sellers up front what the preference is. And but a lot of texting, obviously.
Right.
Phone calls. We're from a farming community, so we've always just communicating and phoning has been the way of communication. So I love talking to people on the phone. So
I still appreciate getting a phone call. I think text is really good for small details like yes, no answers. Do you want this? Do you want that or that? And it's really easy. But when it comes to making emotional or big decisions, it's still, I think it's important not only the communication with the client, but even with the agent on the other side, to hear their voice and to hear my voice or hear your voice, so that they know the context behind the message, right? Yeah. And because a lot of times a counteroffer that comes in by text versus one that's presented over the phone, I know if I'm the seller's agent, I can tell based on their voice if this is likely their best and final, or if they're just saying that, right? And you can tell, right? I don't know. It seems to be easy to tell just on the way they're presented. So with the text message, if you get that in and it says, 750,000 best and final, well, you don't have any other context to know, well, is this it, or will they go higher? So, okay, well, that's good. I think, communication is key. And I always feel like there's been no harm in over communicating. It's always better to share and to keep people up to date on what's happening with at least enough, even especially with sellers, and when it's slower and you have their property for sale, even calling them just to tell them that nothing's happening, they still want to hear from you, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it helps.
Okay. All right. And I think as far as great agents go, when you look around in the real estate community, and highly successful agents, that they seem to be likable people, right? Like they like to have fun.
Yeah.
They get things done. Typically they're very busy, but you can't tell, right? So they make it look easy. And that's a trait that I've definitely seen as well. They typically stay quite calm throughout, and they're not excitable. At least if they're dealing with stress, they're typically hiding it or handling it.
That's true.
Right? And the versatility of being able to adapt to their client rather than trying to get the client to adapt to them. I think that's a super important trait, because I've often met with people, and whether it's in other communities where they've dealt with an agent and they just say like they just felt like it was combative the whole time, versus the opposite of that. I've had people say at the same time, it was just so easy. She was so easy to talk to, right? And they just felt very comfortable, and they didn't know why. But that's,
Right.
I think, a big part of being successful in this business.
Yeah, and really listening. I think listening to your clients is super important. Listening, making notes, and I love, that's my favorite part of the job, is getting to know my clients and like what's important to them, what matters the most, and then going through and making sure that they're happy in the end.
Okay, awesome. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit now, and whether this relates to business or personal, do you have any new apps, let's say, on the technology side? Anything that's making your life better, or that you're using right now that you just think is awesome?
Yes, so I love anything digital and tech. And so my background, before I was in real estate, I worked for an internet company for 15 years. So I just have that ingrained in me.
Yeah.
And what's most recent is the Chat GPT. So it's openai.com is the website itself.
Okay.
So it's free. And so it's very unique in that you can ask it any questions that you may have. Okay. And within the thread of the questions, you can ask more questions that pertain to the same.
So give me an example. What's a question that you've asked recently?
Yeah, so this is just for example. So I use it as a tool, almost like a virtual assistant, to help me come up with ideas and strategies, even for listings, for example. So if I know it's a 3-bed, 2-bath rancher, with a beautiful yard, nice landscaping, irrigation. I go through all the points of the main highlights of the property, and I will say in ChatGPT, please help me write a listing description for the following property in British Columbia. Enter. So, and it'll say, here's your description, and it gives it all out. So I will just use that as a base point.
Right.
By no means should you ever be copying word for word what comes from there. Right. But you can use it as a strategy to help you come up with ideas and concepts. And maybe there's a new word in there that you may not have.
So it's adding value to your business then?
Very much.
For sure.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And you can tell it, make it more spicy, make it more fun, make it sound more professional, and it will come back with anything you ask it to, which is amazing. It's a really cool app.
I personally, I've read about it. I've watched videos on ChatGPT, but I haven't used it yet. So it's on my list, and it's free, right? It's
free.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are times if you go to it in the mornings, especially, it will say it's busy because everyone in the world is starting to use it. So if it is, you'll just have to come back later and try again. There is a $20 a month plan where you can pay for it, and then you've got it.
What is that? What would be the benefit? Like what additional features do you get if you pay?
Well, I know for sure that you would just have access to it whenever you want to.
It just works when you want it to.
When you want it to.
You don't have to wait. Okay.
And the neat thing about it too is I believe the data is from the year 2020 and on, if I have that correct, but it's newer information from the internet.
So the people who don't pay maybe get older data than the people who do pay. Okay, well, fair. That's fair. That's fair. Okay.
No, the whole thing is
the whole
20.
Thing.
The whole thing.
Oh,
is
the
20.
whole thing is.
Yes,
okay.
all of ChatGPT is.
Okay, so it should still be relevant for sure. Okay, awesome. I know for myself, an app that I use, it's not business related. It's called, I'm stiff. Like physically, I have a lot of stiffness and I can't touch my toes, and so I'm not very flexible. And I came across this app called Pliability. Oh. And it's stretching, and it's kind of, I guess it's yoga. It's a combination of yoga stretching. And so every day, it gives you a stretch program, so it's between 20 and 45 minutes per day. Wow! And I just turn on the app, and it's Monday's workout is there, and I just hit it. So, so, cool. So that's one. It's called Pliability.
Can you touch your toes now?
No, I still can't.
Okay, let's show me now, and then in like a month I'll.
Well, okay, well I'm much closer because I can get halfway down my legs. Before I was here.
Yeah,
but now
I'm up there.
So it's better.
Okay, I need to try this because I cannot touch my toes either.
Okay, and all right, any recent purchases that you've made that are that's awesome? Anything that you've bought recently that's made your life better?
You go first.
Okay. Well, I haven't. The biggest thing that always comes to my mind is my AirPods, Apple AirPods, and I don't know what I did before I had them.
Right.
I use them all the time. I use them when I'm on my phone, But so it's just a convenience, and yeah, I love my Apple AirPods. If you don't have any, you should get some for sure.
Cool. Yeah. I got one of those ring things, you know, like for above a camera.
Oh, okay, for doing video.
Yeah, for doing
It works
videos,
good.
and it can, if you're in a darker room, it can create some nice lighting. So I've been liking that feature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And as a realtor, we'll end with this, the last question. So anything come to, and I have a story that I'll tell, but any embarrassing moments on the job
Jeez.
that you've had come up?
Okay, I have not thought about this. You have to go. 'cause
Okay,
I
I'll give
can't-
mine
I don't
first.
know.
Okay, this happened a couple years ago. So I had two clients that I was working with, one named Diana and one named Deanna. Okay, so I get a phone call one day from Deanna. Deanna called me. I thought it was Diana. So Deanna calls me, says, "Hey, we'd like you to come over, give us an update on the value of our house. If you can do up a CMA, that'd be great. We're ready, to get the ball rolling, right?" So I've set the appointment. It was like for Thursday at 2:00. So anyways, what happens? I go to the wrong house. So I go to Diana's house with my full CMA. I get out, go ring the doorbell. Very nice.
Your CMA is for the right property.
Yeah, for their property,
Yeah.
right? So I get there. They welcome me in. They don't say anything like they weren't expecting me. They welcome me in. They have cookies and drinks. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, like nothing out of the ordinary here. I go through the whole, my whole CMA presentation.
Oh my gosh.
And they're super impressed. They're really happy with what I've done for them. And anyways, so it goes well. I finish up, I leave, I get back in my vehicle, and I have a voicemail. And so the voicemail is Deanna saying, "I thought we had an appointment today at 2:00.
Oh my gosh.
Where are you?" Right? Well, long story short is I didn't get the listing with Deanna, unfortunately, because I missed the appointment. But I did with Diana, and
oh my gosh.
So I called them back later and explained what had
said,
happened.
"I have a story."
And they were just like, "Well, we were just super impressed that you were really on the ball and cared so much about us." So it was a little bit embarrassing, but I mean, it worked out in the end. But
jeez.
that was a funny story that happened to me.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I need to think about this, and I'll talk about it the next time.
Okay. Next time you can share your embarrassing story.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right. Okay, well, that's it for today. So thank
Yeah.
you, Melanie. I appreciate it. And
That was fun.
keep killing it out there.
Aw.
And we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Bye.